Hey everyone, I'm Candace. Thank you for coming to my channel. It's me time. This is About You podcast. On this channel, we talk about healing, survival, and advocacy, focusing on issues like restorative justice, trauma, sexual assault, and the powerful ripple effect that our stories can have. Tonight's episode, we will discuss how the trauma of one survivor can impact others in unexpected ways and how we can all heal together. So, before we dive in, please do take a moment to subscribe, follow, and leave a review if you feel so inclined to do so. Thank you for being here. So, I'd like to start off tonight's episode by talking about how my trauma has impacted those around me. Because quite often, when we think of trauma, it can become such an isolating experience, thinking that it's only affected us, especially when we're in it. And I think that it's really important to talk about how it has affected friends, family, coworkers, loved ones, even distant loved ones. It affects absolutely everybody because it affects every single cell of our being. And for example, I've seen how my trauma has affected those around me and those that I love the most in my life, because it almost took me out and it shook me to my core and being. And it gave me such an unstable sense of self that I was unable to show up as my best self and as the person that I'm meant to be in this world. And of course, that impacted the way that I interacted with people, the way that I portrayed myself, my self-esteem, my self-worth. It impacted absolutely everything. And so I was unable to show up as the person that I wanted to be. And the ways that this impacted my family, my friends, and the people around me is it made me less than um, less than my full self. It made me distracted. It made me feel very damaged. It made me feel like others were more important. It made me feel like when I was hurting myself with different substances and different tools that I had used to cope that were unhealthy, um, I thought I was only harming myself. And I believed that. And I believe now that that thought process has been so much to heal from that it's worth talking about, because not only did what happened to me affect my life and everybody around me, but there's a ripple effect that got created, and it affected like the other people around me, and then that their lives were affected, and it continues on. Like other people's impactness from me created them to impact other people in ways that I may not have even seen or understood and may never will. But all I can do today is show up as the most healed version of myself that I can to talk to you about how this has played out in my life, because I believe it's a really, really important topic, because trauma doesn't just affect one person, it affects so many. And like I love a lot of these people that my trauma affected. And I've hurt people because hurt people hurt people. And when I was hurt, I just wanted the pain to stop. I wasn't focused on showing up as my best self. I wasn't focused on anything to do with living. I was focused on self-destructing until my identity imploded to the point where I was no longer physically existent. And I was okay with that. I don't know if people around me were, but I was. And at the time, my self was so consumed with self that that's what mattered to me, because I was in so much pain. And of course, this plays out in ways that quite often go unseen. And so a lot of people in my life may not have understood what was my reasoning behind acting the way that I did and making decisions the way that I did. And it's not until I started taking a look at the things that I didn't want to take a look at that I was able to bring a little bit of it to light by getting honest with myself and honest with others and shining a light in those corners of myself that I didn't want to. And in doing this, and my hope is that it helps other people to be able to do the same, to be able to look at themselves and say, okay, like this really hurts, but also it's okay to feel the feelings around an event that may have happened. It's okay to feel the feelings around an event that maybe somebody else has gone through. It's okay to support people through stuff. It's okay to love people through stuff. And it's also okay to like not know what to say. Because even with myself, I remember going through my stuff and like I didn't even know what to think. I didn't know what to say to myself. I didn't know where to turn or where to go. And like all these people kept telling me I'm a victim and like victim services and of course the cops like didn't do much for me. And hopefully they do for other people out there. Um, but when there's like nowhere to turn, I turned like inward and my inward was really hurting a lot. And I found myself spiraling. And it just fed into my beliefs of not being good enough, of not being worthy, of not having the ability to like self-soothe or make a decisions or cope in any sort of way. I wanted the people closest to me to be nothing like me. I wanted the people closest to me to forget about me and just let me like slip off into my existence of nothingness and extinguish myself, so to speak, so that I didn't have to continue hurting people because of the hurt that I had been feeling inside for so long. The thing about trauma, I believe, is that it doesn't stay confined to one person. And the thing is that I've noticed when I spoke out, quite often the people closest to me didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to respond. They didn't know how to react. They didn't know how to help me. And that left me even feeling more isolated at times than I had already if I didn't speak out. And I don't know if you can relate. Maybe shoot me a message or comment below if you can. But it's it's one of those things that is an unnatural experience, and it's an unnatural event that happens. Sexual assault and rape is something that no human being knows how to process. And so to be flung into this position of processing it, let alone the physical healing that needs to be done in the initial aftermath and the long-term aftermath of the physical, because you know it's a process. The events happen so quickly and sometimes so slowly, but sometimes the healing, well, the healing lasts a lifetime, right? And to share that experience with somebody else, that's going to affect them for the rest of their lives too. And I remember thinking after it happened, like, I didn't want to share with anybody because I didn't want anybody that I loved to feel what I was feeling or to be impacted by it. And I felt like a burden and I felt shame around it. And now I understand that the shame wasn't mine to carry. Therefore, it isn't my loved ones to carry. But healing is my responsibility. And we all have a responsibility to heal the things that have been done to us, because like I'm talking about tonight, we impact other people. You impact other people, whether I like it or not, and whether you like it or not. There are people that care about us, and sometimes the best thing that we can do is to acknowledge that what happened wasn't okay, but I choose for tomorrow to be a little bit more okay than today. And, especially in the beginning when there's no momentum of healing behind all of these thought processes, it can be a really like frustrating experience. I remember not wanting to heal and just like not giving a dang about anything to do with anybody else, because how could anybody else understand possibly what I had gone through? And, if you're out there and you're feeling that, just know that, like, I understand. I don't understand your experience personally, but I understand the experience of what you've gone through. And that's where in my initial healing phases, was seeing the differences. I was looking for differences between myself and other people, because how could other people know possibly what I had gone through and how I was feeling? And that's part of the isolation process. That's part of it. And you don't need to be alone, and neither do I. And that's a lot of the roots of where this podcast began, because we all go through things where we feel shame and we feel guilt around them, whether those are our feelings or not. We're stuck with them for the time being, and it's not until we realize that we have choice in what we're going to do with those feelings, then that gives us an opportunity and a baseline, pivotal point in which to grow from. And I think that's a really beautiful place to be. It hurts a lot, but pain is a great cornerstone for growth, for momentum, for change. And the growth, momentum, and change will change our lives. I know, speaking for me personally, it has helped me become a person that wants to live. I remember thinking the first time that, I'm actually not suicidal anymore. It was about 6 months into my recovery. And I've shared this before, that, like, that's profound. You know what I mean? Like, that's profound. So if you're out there and you're not wanting to live and not wanting to be here anymore, or questioning whether you're worth it, or questioning whether the healing is worth all the trouble and all of those thoughts that can come along with post-rape and post-trauma, I am here telling you that you are worth it. And then just to keep going, you know what I mean? Like, just keep going and reach out for help, because as isolating as these assaults are, we are really not alone. And that loops me back around to the ripple effect that I was mentioning earlier, in which, like, the more isolated that I keep myself, and the more that you keep yourself isolated, there's power in numbers. And when we can speak up and use our voices and take our power back, that's where the real change begins. Because not only has it been empowering for myself, but it's also been empowering for those around me, because it may help other people in my life that I love and care about, that are going through similar stuff. And as soon as we pop those invisible bubbles that keep us all separate, we realize how terminally ununique we actually are from each other. Like I was explaining earlier, that our experiences are so similar, but yet they're so different. And the healing journey is the same. We're very linear, and we are all here to support each other and help each other, because if we want to change the world, we start with ourselves. And I think that's a really powerful statement. And that's ties into the piece of the pain, the motivational piece, because without the pain of feeling so alone, I wouldn't have been able to speak up and to speak out about things that may help you and that may help people in my life that I love and care about. And it's the same for you. The ripple effect is powerful, and it doesn't have an end point. It carries on and on and on. And it's up to each and every one of us with how we want to show up in this world. How do we want to portray ourselves? And, nobody gets out of trauma alive. I truly believe that nobody gets out of childhood without trauma. And so, what are we going to do in this lifetime? What kind of ripple effect are you creating in your life? What kind of healing are you doing in your life? Because anything is possible with a shift in perspective. And I believe that we all have that capability, because we're not meant to come here and suffer. This is not a prison planet. This is a learning planet. It is a spiritual planet. And when we become spiritually sick because of the people that around us that have been spiritually sick, it creates an opportunity for us to share that sickness with others. And it's a really detrimental place to be, because there are people watching us, watching how we handle things. There are people out there sitting in their own stuff that they can't get out of. But that's what I mean is, if we want to change the world, it starts with you, it starts with me, it starts with speaking out and using your voice to help change the lives of those around us that are closest to us, and then that carries on. So, with that being said, tonight I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to speak up, to speak some truth that you haven't spoken before. I'm going to challenge you to reach out to a loved one that may be hurting and hold space, because, with trauma, we don't always have the words to say, but we have energy to share. And energy is so healing. It can just be everything that somebody you love needs, and you may not know it. And so I challenge you to speak your truth. I challenge you to make others uncomfortable with your truth, because you are worth taking up space and taking up the energy that it needs, that you need to get through what you need to say. Even if your voice shakes, even if your knees shake, even if you're crying, even if it's hard to find the words, there are different tools. Write a letter, make a video, use a voice recorder. There are different ways to speak truth, and you never know whose life you could be changing by choosing to make a different decision for yourself. And when that decision gets shifted towards healing, when the perception and the perspective get changed towards healing, the world changes. And it's not just your world that you impact, because you are important, you are so valuable, and you help so many. You have the potential to help endless people. And it all starts with shifting that inner focus from shame and guilt to acceptance, accepting that I am where I am, and I may not like it, but I will get through it, and you will too. And so, with that all being said, I am going to keep this podcast fairly short and sweet, because I just want to reiterate that you're powerful and that you have it in you to do this. So, with that all being said, thank you for coming to my podcast on this beautiful Thursday night, and I will see you next week.